Hi everyone, it's already week 3 of our Craftuary challenge. For this third week's project, we're going to make a pop-up. I'm super excited about this one because I've only made this style of pop-up in my journals before, and today I'm going to make it in a card. So this is an example of a pop-up in a journal and a second one in a smaller journal that I made before. So this was my travel journal and just like another journal that I have. And today I'm going to make the same pop-up but in a card. You can definitely decide to make it in a journal or in a card. It doesn't matter, it's the same process, so it's entirely up to you. If you're new and joining, the Craftuary Challenge is a self-challenge to get you creative during the month of January and also just to get started with 2025 in a nice way. So we've already had 2 different projects for the 2 first weeks of January. We made a 2025 calendar and we decorated an upcycled box last week. If you're interested in seeing those projects and following along, the tutorials are on YouTube and I'm adding the links in the description. This week I'm gonna walk you through how to make a pop-up page in your journal or in a card. It's a super fun project that's accessible to any level. It's not a very difficult pop-up style, so I'm really excited to show you, and we're gonna get started right away. The first thing you're going to need for this project is some cardstock paper, but not too thick. So this is a nice type of paper. It's pretty flexible, as you can see. You will need to bend it in multiple places, but it can't be regular paper because it just needs to be a little more sturdy. I recommend a thickness of 150 to 200 GSM. So this project is suitable for making something in your journals, no matter the size of your journal, or on a card. So the only thing you're going to need to do is decide where you want to realize this project, because the size of the pop-up that we're going to cut will depend on the size of your journal or the size of your card. So we're going to start by cutting the bottom part of your pop-up. That's the part with the mechanism that allows you to open and close the pop-up. For this part, make sure the length is not longer than the journal or the card that you want to put it in. And the width should be about 1/3 of both pages, so the total width of your journal or card, 1/3. So for example, if you have a card or a journal that's 30 wide and that's 20 high, your card is going to be 10 wide, that's 1/3 of the 30, and 20 high, that's the full height of the journal or the card. Now, that being said, I like to measure everything and I like to leave a little buffer. So when I said 10 wide, I would actually make it just a little shorter, maybe 9 or 8 wide, just to make sure everything fits once we close and open the mechanism. So once you have your paper cut, we're gonna start folding them in the right way. So I prepared 2 examples here, so I'm gonna go through it 2 times. First, we're going to fold the paper in half and just make sure the crease is well marked. Then reopen the paper and turn it around. Then we're gonna fold it lengthwise. And again, make sure the crease is well marked and reopen it. Now we're gonna fold it back in the middle where we started and tuck in the corners from the middle and mark them very strongly. And then you're gonna repeat this on the other side, so the same angle, make sure you fold it back on the other side too, so the other side is marked. And then we're gonna switch to the other angle, so the second corner, and do the same thing there. So when you reopen it, you should have a kind of cross in the middle. You will have 4 lines meeting in the center. Fold it by pressing on the 2 triangles on the sides, and it's going to make this new arrow-like shape. And from here, you're just gonna fold the wings back to open the arrow so that you have 2 moving parts at the bottom. And just to demonstrate, this is how the mechanism is going to work under your other part. And that's what's gonna make it open when you open your journal. So I'm just gonna repeat the process a second time. If you wanna skip this part because you already got it, that's no problem. So start by folding your paper in the middle and reopening it. Turn the paper around and fold it in the middle lengthwise. Then reopen it and fold it back in the center where you had creased it in the first place. And then tuck in the two corners from the center part where it's folded on both sides and on both angles. Press on the two triangles on the side to create the arrow shape, and then open it up like flaps on the sides until you have two moving parts at the bottom. Now for the top part of the pop-up, I used the same paper type as for the bottom part, but if you wanted it to be even more sturdy, you could use thicker paper. In terms of the height, this will need to be slightly longer than the height of your journal or card because it's going to be folded. So we really want to have that like kind of accordion effect and for it to go slightly out of the borders of your journal. So going back to our original example, if you have a journal that is 30 centimeter wide and 20 centimeter high, I recommend a height of 28 centimeters. It goes longer than your journal, and a width of 11 centimeters. That would be just slightly longer than the bottom part, which was 10 centimeters. So just enough to cover the bottom part. Also, we will test that the sizes are working before decorating the parts, so don't worry, you can always cut a new piece of paper before you get started. So now that we have the top part of our pop-up, we're going to start folding it. So first fold it in half, then turn it around and fold it in half again. Then just repeat this on the other side by folding the second half. After you're done, this should be the result, a paper with 4 parts that folds a little bit like an accordion. And I'm just going to repeat this process one more time for you to see it properly. Fold it in half, turn it around, then fold the bottom half to the middle and fold the second bottom half to the middle to create 4 equal parts. For this part, lay your bottom folded part back down flat. Just mark the top corner left and the bottom corner right of the paper. This is where we're going to glue. To make sure you don't glue too much, you can create an additional fold from the bottom of the paper to the bottom of the triangle. That's the red line on the image, and then the blue rectangle is where you want to highlight to glue later. So now we're just going to do a little test. Fold your bottom and top parts back and pinch the top paper to the bottom parts marked for the glue with your fingers. So the top and bottom edges of the top paper will be held to the bottom paper. Then try opening and closing, and this will show you if the pop-up mechanism works. This might take you a few tries, but if you have followed all the parts in this video, this should work. You might need to fumble with it a little bit, fold it back and forth, try both sides, turn it around until you figure out where the top and bottom is, and then you can also mark your top paper to make sure you know where it's going to get glued. So once you've run a few tests with your pop-up and made sure you have added the marks for the glue on your top and bottom parts, it's time to decorate your card or your journal, and it's time to decorate the top part of the pop-up. It's much harder to decorate those after you assemble them, just because the pop-up will be in the way of the journal or the card, and the pop-up itself won't be on a flat and hard surface. It will be like kind of in the air, so it will be much harder to decorate afterwards. So I highly recommend doing the decorating before assembling. So this is what I'm doing now. I decided to do the card, and I went for a bit of an owl theme because this card is going to be for one of my friends who really loves birds. So I'm using different types of papers for the background. This is really the creative part where you can do whatever you feel like. It could be more about writing, or it could be more about collaging, trying to use shades of blue and grays and just a bit of a fantasy theme for her. I'm also cutting some paper for under the pop-up. It might not seem important because the pop-up will be covering most of it, but you will be able to see it from the sides when the card or the journal opens and closes. So I find it just like nicer to have a little bit of a coverage in the back of the pop-up. So that is what I'm doing right here. Once again, I'm using my ink pads to just add some stain to the edges to just make sure there's no white. So it just looks more natural and more like aged paper. So here I'm using the afternoon tea color to stain the edges before I apply them. So the whole concept for this card here is just to have a beautiful pattern background on the card, which is why there's not going to be a lot except for the two papers that you see in the back, and the pop-up part will be the card. So that is where I'm going to write. The background card is just going to be the background. So that's why I use a lighter paper for the top part of the card so I can write my birthday wishes on there. If you apply paper like I do here to a large portion of the pop-up, I would recommend folding it as you go on the edges so that the pop-up can still fold properly. And also the more layers you add on the pop-up, the harder the pop-up will have like folding and unfolding, just because of all the layers and the thickness of it. So if you just leave it blank and just write on it, it's gonna open really easily. If you add tons of papers and stickers, it will fold less easily, which is why you really need to mark the creases very well so that it opens and closes as it should. I'm also adding little cutout details to the edges of the pop-up. Those don't have to be entirely stuck on the pop-up. They can lay over the edges, so they can be slightly outside of the pop-up. As long as it folds properly, you will want to try it out before sticking it on there to make sure that it doesn't hinder the closing and the opening of the pop-up. In this case, I'm adding the two owls slightly on the outside edge of the pop-up. The final touch of this card is of course the message, so I went ahead and wrote a nice quote about birds in the middle, and then just a few words of happy birthday at the bottom. I really enjoy making handwritten birthday cards and also just making my own birthday cards. I think it adds a really, really nice personal touch to a gift, and people can see the effort and the time you spent and the thoughtfulness of it. So I think it's a really nice touch for a good friend. All right, we're almost there now. So you're gonna glue the little triangles on one side first, apply it right in the middle of the card or the journal page, fold it back, and then you're gonna fold your top part and glue it on the edges that you marked of the bottom part. So it's important that you have those marked so that you can make sure it works. And before you do it, you can do as many tests as you want to make sure this is gonna fold and open the way it's intended and not like upside down, for example. I want to adjust it in slightly different ways to make sure that it opens properly and also that it fully opens flat, that the top card fully opens flat. If you glue it too close to the center, it's not going to open fully. I highly recommend just making your own adjustments to make sure this is opening the way you want it. And once you're done and you have decided and glued the top part, you're going to need to glue the back of the triangle to the other side of the card. I apologize because the part of the recording showing the gluing at the end got cut and I cannot find it, so I won't be able to show you exactly where to glue. However, I hope that my explanations and just seeing the process and folding and unfolding will show you how to do that. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to write in the comments. I would be happy to help. Once you get to this part and you have folded and tested, it should be quite easy to just put the final pieces together. Thank you so much for watching this pop-up tutorial for our third week of Craftuary. challenge. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know if you'd like to see more pop-up videos. And I will see you next week for our last week of Craftuary Challenge. We're going to be a mini journal together. So I'm super excited about it, and I'll see you next week. Thank you for watching.